Guys, I'm truly thankful you're here. Lots and lots of stuff that I want to encourage you with. For starters, though, if you don't have my contact info, if you don't have Kate's contact info, we wanted to give that to you. Also, we wanted to give you the Remind. I'm sure a lot of you are using Remind at school, so we use the same thing. It's super easy. The one annoying thing about Remind is it only allows me 140 characters. And I don't sneeze in 140 characters. I try really, really hard to keep my text at a minimum, but it's really, really hard to do. Nonetheless, though, we send out messages to you and to students. And so if you've not joined the Remind, be sure and do that. But if you ever need to call Kate or I, we would love for you to do that. So you've got our contact info, you've got our email info. If you want to show up at our houses, that's fine too. But so we're here to support you, and that's really kind of what this meeting's all about. So let's jump into some kind of summer calendar stuff. And then we're going to get rolling. I say summer calendar. The first thing up is All City Worship. All City Worship is this coming Wednesday night. It is going to be at Mount Olive Baptist Church, which you've never been there. It's one of the oldest churches in the city of Arlington, which is really cool. It's the church that hosts unity in the community. So every year, actually, Pastor Eric spoke in the last couple of years there. Really, really great facility. They've opened their doors for us, so there will be anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 students from all over Arlington, and we meet together twice a year just for a worship service. So that's this coming Wednesday night at 6:15 to 8:15. Don't come here to the loft. We're not transporting students there. Y'all take them to Mount Olive and drop them off, or even more so, you're more than welcome to just stay and kind of check it out. We'd love for you to do that. We should have pizza for all the students. The church, I think we pay $100 to let the students get free pizza and that sort of thing. So we're happy to do that. It's part of the evening. Every church chips into the process. But really, really great time. One of these days we'll end up posting this too. But they've been doing this for 5 or 6 years, and it's always a great event. So be sure and don't forget that this Wednesday night. Again, we won't be here. We will be at Mount Olive Baptist. The next thing we got going on though, and this one sounds really funny. This is an old event that Martin has revived. They have a terrible logo, but we'll work on that some other day. But it's called Wasted Youth, and it is similar to All City Worship. Really, it's kind of more of the Martin cluster. But it is totally student-led, which is exciting. There's going to be testimonies from students who are actively following Jesus, or students that messed up but are following Jesus now. And they lead worship, they do the whole 9 yards. It is overseen by actually 2 of our LABC church members that are teachers over there. But it's going to be a great, great night. They're excited to get this thing kicked back off. But that's May 1st, so we're going to attend that as well. That's a Wednesday night. So again, we'll just meet over at Martin. We'll have that worship service, and then that'll be what's going on. They're going to have snacks and stuff for them there too, but that'll be there in the Martin Auditorium. We're really excited just that Martin has opened the door to allow us to do this. This is really kind of a big step for them, and so again, we want to support that and continue to get our feet in the door. Not just at Martin. We want to get our feet in the door at every school we can. But we're excited about that too. So mark your calendars for May 1st. Another thing coming up, just June 2nd, those of you that have seniors, really expect a letter from me probably the next week or two. I'll be asking you for embarrassing pictures and fun stories, but we're going to honor our graduates on June the 2nd. We have, I think there are 16 of them this year. They're coming from 3 different schools, which is pretty exciting. Really, really great class, and a class by and large that stayed pretty involved, so really excited about that too. But again, parents of seniors, if you're watching for my letter, that'll be coming. Something new that we're going to be doing this year. I say it's something new. Apparently it's something that used to happen, and I just didn't realize it. Now I'm going to ask you for pictures, but I'm going to ask you, and even if you don't have a senior, you can still participate in this. I'm going to ask you to write letters to your student. We're going to combine those, and actually when we hand them their graduation, we love you package, that'll have gifts from me and gifts from Pastor Eric and pictures from Melvin. We're also going to hand them just a packet of letters that have been written to them by parents from the church that love them dearly. So if you've got a senior or two that you know you invested in, we encourage you to go ahead and write that letter, get it to their mom and dad. They'll get that to me. The students don't know we're doing this. It's been long enough since we've done this that kind of forgotten about this tradition, but that's one I totally want to revive because I think it'd be really, really cool. So again, that's June 2nd, something to look forward to. LC interns, this is a new thing that Katrina and Casper, isn't that an awesome picture of those two? This summer, Katrina and Casper are going to hire 3, really they're shooting to get 4 students from our church. Kind of the conditions are we want them to be students that are active, and not only active in the church, but like physically active. So if you've got kids that their preferred location is the couch, this probably is not a gig for them. But if they're fairly active, or at the very least they're willing to be active, they're willing to listen, and they're going to have the time to be involved in all 4 of the camps that LC hosts this summer. Katrina and Casper want to hire them to work those camps. Now here's the payoff for that. They will get either our church camp paid for this summer, or about half of our mission trip to Seattle paid for if they do that. So the camps are always in the morning, so really it's 3 hours for 3 days. They'll do a little bit of prep in the afternoons, but it's not a full day's work, although it'll feel like it doing dodgeball camp with 75 4th and 5th graders. But that's a really, really cool opportunity. So they'll be doing interviews with the students. If they only have 3 or 4 apply, then that's okay. But contact Katrina. You've got her email address there. Some of you, I've already got Katrina's phone number, or just call up here to the LC if your kids are interested. In fact, I say you contact them. Put that onus on your kids. This is a good little step for them, just to call if this is a job they're interested in. And by the way, there's no caveat. It can be a junior high student or a high school student. It doesn't have to be a high school student. So if that's something they're interested in, have them talk to Miss Katrina or Casper, and we'll get them fixed up. But we're excited about that. We're not going to have youth interns this summer, but Kate and I are going to be supporting pretty significantly Casper and Katrina, so we're going to be real involved, and we'll even do some discipleship with those 4 students as well. So we're pretty excited about that as well. It's going to be a good summer in that sense. Youth camp is July 2nd through the 6th. And for a while I was saying July 1st through the 5th because that just made sense to me that it was Monday through Friday. It's not. Camp is Tuesday through Saturday, which I say is weird, but kids camp is Thursday through Tuesday. So there's no rules anymore on when you have camp. You just go to camp whenever you go to camp. But we're really excited to go to Lake Lavon this year. Lake Lavon's just on the other side of Plano. Actually, it's right beside Allen. But it's going to be a fantastic camp. I went and saw the facilities about a month ago, met the people who are running it. It's a beautiful facility. It is on an isthmus. We're surrounded by a lake at camp. It's really, really cool. Dude Perfect, if you're familiar with him, he just filmed an episode of his TV show, his little crew. It's nice enough, they filmed an episode of their show at Lake Lavon. So all sorts of water sports you can imagine, including out on the lake. Funny enough, at least I think it's funny, maybe it's not. The number one question I get asked by students is, we're going to have fireworks on the 4th of July, right? Yes, there will be fireworks on the 4th of July. In fact, we'll probably have a better, unless you're at the Ranger Stadium that night, we'll have a better fireworks show than most folks, because not only does the camp put on a fireworks show, but there'll be lots of people around the lake also putting on a fireworks show. So they'll be seeing our fireworks and lots of fireworks in distance. So that'll be a really, really cool deal. The thing I'm most excited about camp for our students, though, is our speaker this year. He's a guy named Runks. Runks is 6'5". He weighs maybe 150 pounds soaking wet. I mean, he's just a tall, scrawny dude. But he is twice as ADHD as I am, and talks twice as fast as I do, and he's about 10 years older than me. He's a good friend of mine. He's my favorite youth speaker in the entire country, because he's an incredible man of God. He knows really, really how to connect with teenagers. West Texas, he's a tech fan, by the way, for those of you who care about that sort of thing. So, yeah, good dude. I've worked with him several times over the years. Our kids are going to love him and learn a lot from him. But there's about 20 different activities the students can be a part of. So, you can register for camp now. It's labc.com/youth or labc.com/summerfun. Either way, camp is $185, which is a great deal. It's a little bit cheaper than what we did last year. Or you can just pay your deposit. I think he said the deposit was $35. You just want to go that route. Final payment for camp won't be due until that Sunday before we leave. So July, actually, no, it'd be June 31st. The question I want to ask you, though, I'd really like to not rent a bus if we can help that. It's going to cost about $1,000 to get a bus for us to go from here to Allen. That just feels really silly to me. And so, if we don't have to, I'm just curious if there were 10 parents that would be willing to drive our students over in their SUVs. We'd still rent a trailer and pull a trucks. We'll still take a couple of vehicles that we'll have with us all the time. But I'd love to save that money and invest that money instead into something else for the students this summer. So it's not something you have to answer me right now. Just think about it. That's something you'd be willing to help us do, to transport kids to Plano, which camp doesn't start until I think 2 that afternoon, so we don't have to worry about rush hour traffic. And then again, camp ends on a Saturday, so there's no rush hour traffic to deal with then too. So you can come back on Saturday and pick us up. And it wouldn't be a big deal at all. It's something for y'all to think about. Again, I'd love to invest that $1,000 in something else. If at the very least, maybe we'd make camp just a hair cheaper. But we'll probably take 60 to 70 students to camp this year, which we're excited about. So again, that's Lake Lavon. It's going to be a great time. Other big thing going on this summer is our Seattle mission trip. This is for junior high or high school students, but we have a max of 15 spots for this. One of the new things that we're doing about this too is we're requiring students before they get signed up for this trip to do an interview with me or Kate. And I'm certainly, why are you doing the interview thing? Don't you just want my money? And the answer is no. no, I don't want your money. I want to make sure our students that are going on this trip understand what they're signing up for. Not only do they understand what missions is and why it matters, because really for 6 months we've had a whole bunch of students go, I want to go to Seattle, that sounds awesome. I'm a Seahawks fan, let's do it, that's great. And all those things are cool, and we're definitely going to have some fun, but that's not why we're going. We're going to serve the Lord, and also we're going very much so to support our church, the dwelling place up there. We're going to be kind of their backup. The dwelling place is doing the leading, and we're going to be the energy and not even the spearhead. We're going to do whatever it is they need us to do. And so it's going to involve a ton of walking, miles and miles of walking a day. It's going to involve just being out in the sun and working all day long. And we're going to go home and sleep and wake up the next morning and do it again. And then whatever else pops up that they need us to do, even if it's not something we planned for, that's what we're going to do because we want to support the church. So I want to make sure the students understand that's what it's about. And so that's the conversation I've had. It's not an intense thing. I'm not grilling them, but I truly want them to understand, again, the purpose of missions and why we're doing this, and to make sure that's something that they're willing to do. I had a couple of conversations with students that after they talked to me, they go, oh, okay, yeah, I don't know if I want to do that or not. And that's okay. That's why we're having these conversations. I also just think, again, it's good for students to have, an interview kind of thing. It's just a good life skill for them. But that's what's going on. The trip's going to be $450. The deadline to sign up, though, and this is a hard deadline, is April 21st. And that's so we can buy the plane tickets at the absolute cheapest that we can do it. They're sitting right now, which is really exciting, at about $280 round trip. It's incredible, it sounds like. So, and they've assured me that price will remain the same for really a couple more weeks. So, yeah, the 21st is our hard deadline. It's not that a kid couldn't sign up after that point. It's just going to be a lot more expensive and probably a lot more complicated because I can't promise that we get a kid on the same plane at that point. Now, we do have a group that's driving up. One of our praise bands is going up, Hannah Hall, and they call them the Part-Time Rock Stars, which is a fun name. They're going to drive to Seattle with all their equipment. But I don't necessarily want to put a student in with them. That would be chaos and any number of reasons. But anyway, yeah, hard deadline, April 21st, so just keep that in mind. Summer calendar, that will be coming to you soon. I'm kind of putting the finishing touches on that. Part of why I want to meet with you today, though, is I need help in a couple of areas. We're looking for host homes that would be willing to host the Bible study that we do every Monday night. Ideally, I'd really like the idea of bouncing around instead of just being a burden on one family all summer or two families all summer long. I'd love to just every Monday or maybe even every other Monday to be in a different house. Because it's good for us to be in each other's homes and get to know each other in that fashion. It's good for our students to go, oh, okay, that's your mom and dad. Awesome. This is where you live. Cool. You live a lot closer to me than I realize. And so we want to have host homes for our Bible study, but then we're also looking for host homes for our swim parties too, which is always a great time. We do that at least, if not once or twice a month. And so those are two areas specifically where I need some help. And then obviously all these other fun things that we're going to do, we really want to go have a picnic together. We're going to find ideally, Kate and I have been talking about it, we want to find a location not in the Metroplex. I don't know where that is yet. We're going to find a non-Metroplex location though and drive over, hang out in the park and have a picnic together and just hang out. We're going to go play whirly ball. We did that back in January with a small group of students. Had so much fun. The junior high boys are dying to play paintball. It might just be me and the junior high boys. That's fine. I can handle that. We're going to do that. And we'll swim. We will do Christmas in July. That's one of our traditions now. It's just a lot of fun. That's always a great time. As long as I'm your youth pastor, there will always be Rangers games in the summer. Again, if I go by myself, that's okay. Something that we did last summer in Loveland that was so much fun is we took a snow cone machine that we rented and we just gave away snow cones to people and talked to folks about the Lord. And we thought, this is easy. We can do this at home. So we're going to do that this summer. At least once, if not twice. We're just going to, actually, probably the day that we do the picnic thing, we're going to do the picnic and then we're going to set up our snow cone machine and give away snow cones and talk about Jesus. Whether they come to LABC or not is irrelevant. We just want to bless our community. So we're excited about that possibility too. I was contacted this week about a kind of a makeshift apartment VBS that needs some support, so we may take some students to go do that as well. And I don't know, it's going to be a fun, full summer with lots of just brainless activities and structured activities and things that are designed for fellowship and then things that we really want to see them grow in their faith this summer. And so we're going to capture that and make use of it. And generally speaking, I discovered most parents are happy to let me take your kids because you're tired of dealing with them all day. I'm fine with that. I love hanging out with your kids. So that'll be great. So there's some of your activities. Hopefully I'll have that calendar to you by the end of April, and you'll have all those dates in mind. Sixth grade promotion. We've got some of our sixth grade parents in here, which we're excited to have you here. The date we are going to come and lovingly, we use the term kidnap, so we're not kidnapped. The day that we will come and take them from the sixth grade classroom and bring them up here is July 28th. You can't really see the writing, but the thing on the side says it's more awesome than a cat boxing a bear. So yeah, we say silly things around here. That's just a dumb photo I found online, thought it was funny. But that is Promotion Sunday, so just be aware of that. I keep popping into the sixth grade class and spending lots of time with your students. We want them to feel as comfortable and safe and secure and even excited about this jump up. It's a lot different than kids 10 years ago. They could not wait to join youth group 10 years ago. Now in some cases there's some trepidation about that. We're really sensitive to that, so we want to make that transition not only smooth for your kids, but for some of you, you may have that trepidation as well. Get fully compassionate to that too. So if there's anything I can do to help make this smooth, even if it's just coming over and hanging out and kind of walking you through what we do, we will do that. But again, just be aware that that is the official date. If your kids are going to kids camp, sixth graders, we will do, we don't call it initiation anymore, but we will kind of knight them as official members of the youth group there at kids camp. In fact, the last thing they do before they go to bed that night is they get to hang out with the youth group students that are there, and we do a scavenger hunt thing with them, and they get a Sonic drink, which of course they love, and just make a big deal about, hey, you're a part of us now. And then again, Sunday morning we'll come and officially ferry them up to it. So be watching of that. Did I skip one? Oh, no, there it is. Yeah, this is something we just decided this week. I went to First United Methodist in Mansfield. Several of you are familiar with Celebrate Recovery that we've been hosting really all semester long. And it's going really, really well. Miss Heather started talking to me about this teenager segment of it, and it's called The Landing. And what we discovered is there's only 2 churches in the entire Metroplex that host the teenage version of Celebrate Recovery. But the fact is every church in the Metroplex has students that are dealing with the exact same issues that their parents are dealing with when they come to Celebrate Recovery. And so the better, more holistic option for us as a church family, if we're going to minister to parents of kids, again, whether they're church members or not is irrelevant, if we're going to minister to people who are parents but have teenagers who are also still dealing with those hurts and hang-ups, then we want to minister to those teenagers as well. And then eventually we'll even be able to do that for the children. They have a children's-based version of CR as well. So again, we're going to be working, hopefully we can pull this off. This may be super ambitious to try to pull it off by then. But the goal is to hopefully have this by the fall. And so I'm just making you aware of that. You'll hear me talking about that, and we'll even be looking for some of you to get involved in that. And that's a different, being a totally different kind of small group leader. It's a pretty fascinating process. So again, just a heads up, that's coming. We're excited about it. The other thing going on though, and this is not till December, but I'm talking about it now because this is a pretty big investment. We are going to Bosnia in December. I'm super, and we've been planning this for almost a year. In December, we're going to Bosnia. We'll leave a couple days after Christmas. That return date is not a hard date yet. We're still working with the Greenwiches on what that'll look like. There's a very real possibility we're going to Bosnia to go ski for Jesus, which just sounds awful, I know, right? But one of the ministries that the Greenwiches do during the winter months is they are out on the slopes talking to Jesus to people when they're not skiing. And so Jeremy said, do you think you could talk some teenagers into coming ski and talking a little about the Lord? And I said, you can talk me into that. So I miss snowboarding so bad I can't stand it. So we're excited about this possibility. But if there's anything that's even more intriguing to me, one of the things that Jeremy has been doing lately is ministering to people through baseball. And he said, you don't know anything about that, do you? He said, the day is mine. This is going to be the greatest mission trip ever. I can ski and talk about baseball. You can also see in the bottom right there's American football. Jeremy has been helping establish an American football team in Bosnia, of all things. Bottom line is the Bosnian folks are intrigued with some of the steps that we as Americans do. So this is a really, really cool opportunity that we have to go. Of course, we've got our team that's going in, was it June or July? Are we going to ride? But there you go. So we'll be the follow-up squad there. You know, we've already sent a team once last summer. We're going to send another team this summer, and then over Christmas time for a third group, a bunch of teenagers, no less, to show up in Bosnia. It'll give you a really, really powerful statement. That one is going to be for high schoolers only, unless mom and dad do go. I've had a couple people ask, hey, would you be willing to let a whole family come? I'm absolutely willing to let a whole family come. We need to work some stuff out. But that'll be for high schoolers, again, unless mom and dad come, and we'll figure out what that looks like. But I don't have a deadline of when we need to sign up. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I do have a deadline. right there, duh, sorry. August 11th is really the deadline when we need to have people signed up and paying deposits, and then we figure out the flights and all that good stuff. And again, the sooner we buy those plane tickets, the better off we're going to be. Most of the cost of that trip is the plane ticket. That's why it's so much. Now, hopefully we can get that way, way lower, but there's no guarantees on that. So it's really that $3,500, that's I won't charge you any more than that. We'll just say it that way. But hoping we can bring that down. We're pretty excited about that trip. The grooms is really excited. Their kids are excited that some of their LABC friends might come and see them. So that would be really, really cool. I just thought this was funny. I like memes, and I don't know if you've ever had any conversations with kids like this or not. Your kids ever told you, hey, Mom, you're not funny? There's your free comeback, okay? So there you go. Okay, Kate is not here. She is celebrating her first anniversary, which we're really excited about. If you didn't know, Kate, our girls minister, she got married actually right here in this room a little over a year ago. We did that on Wednesday night at youth group. So maybe the most fun I've ever had doing a wedding. And so anyway, so she's celebrating her anniversary. I told her we were more than in favor of that. But she filmed a quick video, so we'll let you watch.
Howdy, y'all. I'm sorry I can't be with you here this parent meeting because we're going to be in Paladar Canyon for our anniversary. But I just wanted to go over some more app stuff that's on the up and coming and just some reminders. I have 3 things I really want to go over. The first is just going back to Instagram. A lot of our students have what they call Finstas, or fake Instagrams, or spam accounts, or whatever you want to call that. These are accounts where they post more photos more frequently that aren't so serious, or they don't want to put on their real Instagram because it's not worthy of, being on the main channel or whatever. But a lot of them will disguise this with like different usernames. They won't put their names on there. They won't put a profile picture that looks like them, but they're posting things that are not really of their character. Some things can be inappropriate, sometimes they're not, but I'm seeing a lot of just profanity used, and I know that it's a really good way, because it's private, for them to post pictures that aren't necessarily appropriate. They don't want their youth pastors or teachers or parents seeing, because they know it's not really the best idea to be posting those things. So you might just talk to your kid about it. If you don't want to, that's okay. Just know that there's a possibility that that might be out there somewhere. The second app I want to talk about is something that we just discovered. It's called LABC. And this is an app that really promotes the fact that you can do things anonymously. So it's a messaging app where you can find whoever you want to chat with, and it's like Snapchat in the way that you can send things and they can disappear. So really this app is just totally promoting abuse. A lot of kids are putting this in their Instagram bio, so anybody who knows their Instagram can click on it and message them anonymously and give them feedback. That's what the app is really promoting. But, so 2 things. You have to be 18 to use this app. It asks you if you're 18. So if they're going through, then they're lying about their age. They do this, LABC does this, because they've had tons of issues with underage people just abusing each other, bullying each other, and they don't want any part of that. They also do not allow bullying on their app. That's another one of just the things they have you sign. However, all of this is just to back their side up, because they know that their app is promoting abuse, and that there's a huge chance that it's being used to really bully and be able to take away the messages that you sent and you know that aren't appropriate. So look out for that. It's really just not a great idea. And I know a lot of these things are super scary, but I found this app. It's called Bark, and it is an app that really, it's just a monitoring app. But I love it because it has the most coverage of any monitoring tool that I've found so far. So it monitors all types of apps through Snapchat, LABC, those things that can go through and then disappear, it'll detect those if something else is going on. So it has social media monitoring, it has text monitoring, email monitoring, 24/7, like all around monitoring. So it monitors things that are being sent. If it's, like sensing a lot of profanity, it'll let you know. If it's sensing some phrases that are very close to self-harm or bullying or sexting or adult content, it'll let you know. And it doesn't just monitor the things that are being said, but also, I guess the activity is a good way to put that. So sites or things or pictures that they're following or looking at, if they sense that it's not appropriate for your student, then it'll detect it and let you know. Here's the thing that I love about it though, is it monitors and detects it, but it doesn't let you snoop. So you can set your filters to let you know when it detects something that's not appropriate, but it's not letting you snoop. So it is detecting the things that aren't appropriate, and it's alerting you, but it's giving your kids some sense of privacy still. So if there's nothing going on, then it's not going to alert you. It gives them a sense of security and individuality without you being all up in your business, in their business. So those are just the 3 things that I really wanted to go over. BARC does a free week or month trial, so you guys can always test it out and see if it's for you, and if it's not, then all right. But that's all I have for you guys today, so have a wonderful rest of your meeting.
We're really, really proud of Kate, just in how she continues to grow in this position, and she's doing an awesome job with girls. It's really, really cool. Okay, we got a special guest tonight, I promised you. I'm really excited to have Detective Alan Branch with us, and he's going to talk to us about, I'm calling it cell phone safety. I'm going to let him call it whatever he wants to. I'll let him tell you what he does too. Brilliant guy though, and so I'm excited for y'all to hear from him. Alan, come on up, man.
What does that entail? Basically, I'm the child pornography and online solicitation guy. There are 2 of us in the department. So I don't deal with teddy bears and rainbows. So this week I closed a few cases, and I'm like, yeah, I closed a few cases, and I went down to the bottom to see how many cases I have left. I'm still at 67. So does that kind of give you an idea of how many cases we have? And there's just 2 of us that work those kind of cases. Okay, so how many of y'all are bringing kids in for the first time? This is your first meeting? Okay, I'm sorry. Hopefully these meetings won't be like this all the time. Sorry. No, but the important thing is I'm here to talk about, like you said, cell phone safety. Doing what I do, I would say that cell phones have become an epidemic for our high schools and junior highs, and even elementary school. So if y'all have elementary students as well, you need to be aware of what's going on. So, before we get started, I kind of want to make this biblical in a way. Can y'all turn, y'all have a Bible? No? Yes? If you do, turn to 2 Samuel chapter 11. We'll read the first 5 verses. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "Isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. And she had purified herself from her uncleanness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, "I am pregnant." I mentioned that passage because we're talking about David, who is the man after God's own heart, right? He also had men that were telling him right then and there, isn't this the wife of Uriah, your head hero? David even had Nathan, right, to be a man of counsel for him. And yet, David still fell into temptation. He still fell into a very grievous sin that had some pretty dire consequences. So, the reason I'm mentioning this is because we all can fall into this temptation in one way or another. And just like David was able to see Bathsheba from his rooftop, our cell phone is our rooftop. Any one of us, adult, child, or whatever, can fall into that kind of temptation. So, let me kind of give you a little bit about what I think about cell phones. One, I think it's an epidemic. The reason I say I think it's an epidemic is because most of my cases deal with teenagers and their cell phones. And I'll kind of give you an idea about some of the apps that I come across. I have never heard of LABC yet. I'm sure that we will. Because it does have the same features that some of these other apps have that we see all the time. I think Bark may be a good app to use for monitoring. Might be a good idea to check it out and see what you think about it. However, I want to say that it's not going to be foolproof. It won't be foolproof. How many of y'all here have an iPhone? Raise your iPhone up. Okay. Hang on. Okay, I see an iPad, I see TJ's MacBook Pro. A couple more popping up. Alright. My phone is locked up.
Do you use my Android?
Once more, let's try to send it. Well, what I was planning on doing was going to be pretty cool.
Got it.
Did you get it? Maybe it's just taking a while because there's a bunch of them.
Got it.
Okay, so it's working there. Someone declined me.
What did you say? Picture of TJ.
Picture of TJ.
But it disappeared. Where'd it go? Where's the phone holder?
Okay, a couple of y'all are waiting. Okay, so the point of me sending you this picture is who got the picture? Okay, when you saw the picture, did you see the picture when it came up? Did it say accept or deny or decline? Okay, hopefully you declined it because it was TJ. But the point is, this is what the kids are doing now. They are airdropping inappropriate photos. And you can confirm that when you got the picture, you saw what the picture was. You don't have a choice on not seeing the picture. See what I'm saying? The picture shows up and you have to accept it or decline it. So the Bark is not going to be foolproof when some one of the other kids airdrops everybody they can in the school. And that we're seeing a lot of that. So what that means is whether you are doing everything you can do for your children, they can still be exposed to pornography. And then that sparks curiosity, and then we've gone down a David trail. Okay, the other thing I think about Bark is it'd be great for y'all to monitor, but everybody in here has an iPhone, knows about FaceTime. Okay, FaceTime is a great tool, but what it is, it's you talking to another person you can see their face for those Android users. I'm sure y'all have something similar to that on Android. But, so FaceTime and Skype are two dangerous ones because we can have a conversation and that conversation can get sexual, and mom and dad will never know about it. And the only reason that I know about it is because I work these kind of cases, and I've got a Skype case right now that I'm working. And we see every cell phone that we get, we have to look at everything that's on those cell phones because we're having to investigate the case. And most of those cases are an Instagram case where two people have been sending inappropriate pictures to each other. So what am I finding on every cell phone that I've analyzed? I'm finding porn. I'm finding FaceTime. You know what a thumbnail is? A thumbnail is basically like an image capture of a video. So it can be an image capture of a picture as well. But we'll see thumbnails of a conversation. And what it'll look like, if you've ever done FaceTime, you know that you have the big screen and then you have the little screen. So the big screen is the person you're talking to, the little screen is you. So you can see you talking to the person. So I will see screenshots or thumbnails of those images. And when these kids are talking to their girlfriend or boyfriend and they're doing inappropriate things, they're snapshotting those images. And so those images are caught on their phone. So those are things that the parents will not know about because it's not going to show up on their phone if they don't snapshot it. Or it's not something that you can see just by going through their phone and seeing what's on there. It's things that we see because we get into the background of the phone. Scary? Okay. Now, the reason that I'm here to talk to y'all tonight is not to scare you. It is scary because it's an epidemic. It's what we have to deal with now as parents. It's not going to go away. However, the more knowledge that we have, the more tools that we have, the better we can be at trying to counteract what's going on with our kids. So, everybody heard of Snapchat? Okay. Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. Anybody ever heard of Musical.ly, Lively, TikTok? Okay. Those are the main apps that we see that are very detrimental to the kids. Snapchat, all the kids think that those images disappear or that the videos disappear. They don't. Snapchat keeps everything. Just to give you an example, I have 6 arrest warrants on my sergeant's desk right now for one case involving Snapchat at a local school here in Arlington. I won't tell you the name of the school, but that's my reality. That's what I deal with. That's just Snapchat. Instagram is one of our major ones that we have to deal with because y'all heard about the Finstas. That's real. Now, if we have an investigation, we can find out who that Finsta belongs to because they have to put in an email address or we can go through the IP address and find out whose account that is. And then sometimes we have to call the parents and say, hey, you know what your child is doing. Musical.ly is one of those apps that a lot of the younger kids like to be a part of. And basically it's an app where they can video them singing a song. So they can have their very own, like American Idol, or one of those little things that they want to try to be, famous with their friends or whatever. But the reality is that Musical.ly is now, it used to be Live.me, that turned into Musical.ly, and now I think it's TikTok. It's all the same thing. The kids record their videos and post them to their friends. However, it's basically a fishbowl for pedophiles. They will get on the app and they'll talk to you and they'll tell you, hey, I like your videos. And then before you know it, you have an adult male or an adult female talking to your child. So those kind of apps are very scary. And frankly, if you have a child that has those apps, try to get them off. Don't let them have those kind of apps. because your kids aren't going to know who they're talking to. And before you know it, they've done some things because they've been told to. And then they're not going to want to tell you because they're embarrassed to tell you. So it's best to just have those kind of apps off your child's phone. There are a couple of offenses that we deal with personally in our unit. One of those is it's called sale, distribution, or display of harmful material. And within the high school or the junior highs, if we have one kid that posts something on Instagram of another kid that's inappropriate, or posts it or sends it to another kid, then we've got an offense. That's a Class A misdemeanor. Most of the time, we're not going to charge the kid with that charge. Basically, if we did, we wouldn't have anything else to do with our job. We'd be doing that all day, every day. So the way that we prevent extra work for us is we put it back on the parent. If we get those kind of cases, we notify the parents and say, hey, this is what we found. Be a parent, discipline your kid accordingly. And we'll contact both parents. Because, think about this. Your child has an inappropriate image of another child on their phone. What happens when they turn 18? They have an image of a 14-year-old on their phone. They now have child pornography. Okay? So, a lot of people don't think of that. That when they grow older and now they have a nice job, they're in college, they go off to the military, and they still have those photos on their phone of when they were kids. Kids and kids is, it's different for them. We're not going to charge the kid at that time, but when they become older, now if they still have those images, they now have child pornography. And that's something new that we're coming across, is people with old images that the definition of child pornography is it's based on the age of the child at the time the photo was taken, not on the age of the person at the time that it's caught. Does that make sense? The age of the child at the time the photo was taken. So if we got kids in junior high doing that, and then those kids turn into adults, if they have not gotten a new phone, or sometimes those images transfer to the new phone, and they still have those images on their phone, it's a mess that we don't want to have to deal with. So another thing as parents to be concerned about. That's a different offense.
Wrestling step.
Online solicitation of the minor. That's when we get into TikTok, live musically, and even nowadays Twitter is a bad one. Twitter has a program called Periscope. Have y'all heard of Periscope? Basically, it's a live broadcasting option that kids can get on Twitter and do a live broadcast. Kind of like Musically or something, but it's live. And they can be talking to a group of people, and that group of people can tell them things. Not just talk to them, hey, I like your video or whatever, but they've got people there telling them, take your clothes off. I have an 8-year-old that I'm investigating right now. So, not to alarm you, and not to scare you, but at the same time, I need you all to be aware that this is a problem. An 8-year-old shouldn't have a cell phone, in my opinion. A 13-year-old should not have a cell phone, in my opinion. I would say my safest opinion is if a child is old enough to pay for the cell phone himself, then he can have one. And if he had one, and he's not mature enough to use it yet, I am going to make that phone a brick. Meaning that it will not have any camera capability. It will only have texting capability for your family. no one else. You will not be able to use a camera. You will not be able to use anything on it, no internet, no Wi-Fi capability. The only thing you can do is make a phone call and maybe text mom and dad. You can make your smartphone do that. Did y'all know that? You can brick your smartphone.
I just say brick.
That will work too. Yeah. So that's the safest way for you to be able to monitor these kind of things is to make sure that all those capabilities are not working on your child's phone. However, I can make this phone a brick, and my friend at school has a smartphone that's not brick, and they can say, hey, look at this girl, or look at what I found on the internet. And now your child has been exposed to pornography, even though you've done everything that you can imagine to do to make sure that your kid is not exposed to that. So, is anything foolproof? No. So what's the other option? Huh? Teach your child. Have those conversations. They're going to be difficult conversations. But your child needs to be aware that this is going to happen. And what are the options for when it does? What are you going to tell your kids? It's like the old, back in the day, we had the commercial with the frying pan and the eggs in the frying pan. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. We need to have those kind of conversations with our kids about cell phone usage, about what's going to happen when other children in your school are going to be pressuring you to get Instagram or to get Snapchat or to, you're not cool unless you're exchanging nude photos back and forth. That's the world we live in today. Instagram is so bad that everybody wants to have as many followers as they can have. And how are they getting those followers? They're posting inappropriate videos and pictures of other kids so that they can get people to click and follow them. The more followers they have, the more popular they are in school. So, communication is key. Also, number one, be praying for your kids, which I don't think we even have to mention in here, but pray for your kids. Communicate with them. They need to be aware of this on a very constant basis. And then, if you do choose to have a smartphone for your kids, have every kind of app possible that you can get on there to help monitor. Have those conversations with your kids. Sexual performance by a child is the other office that we deal with a lot. What is sexual performance by a child? Sexual performance by a child is if I'm the adult male and I tell your adult child to send me a nude photo, and your adult child sends me that nude photo, I have now committed sexual performance by a child because I have talked that child into sending me something that's sexually explicit. The case I told you about that has 6 warrants, one of those is sexual performance, 3 of them are online solicitation, 1 is harmful material, and 1 is child pornography on 1 kid who's an adult that went to the same school and knew all the kids. So those are the main offenses that we deal with. I want to open it up to questions, but I don't want y'all to be totally scared. I want y'all to understand that these are tools and information to arm you how to better help your kids get through their teenage years. We can't stick our head in the sand when it comes to our kids and cell phones. It's an epidemic, and your kid will be exposed in one way or another if it hasn't happened already. question in the group, take me to the side. You know where I go to church.
Well, we thank God that you go to church with us too, so we're very, very grateful. So let's get out of hand. So you do cell phones, they'll do microphones. How about that? Cool.
I hear there's a microphone in your phone.
There is a microphone in the phone. That actually learned fairly recently. You need to shut that off, otherwise Amazon has a really good time with you. So we need to talk about Jesus, because after hearing that, there's certainly some demons and demonic activity going on here. So I had a little longer spiel planned, but I'm committed to getting you out of here by no later than 6:30. So I'm just going to jump right in. Pastor Eric, some of you have heard this before, some of you not. Pastor Eric has been given a vision by God that we're calling the 5 hills of LABC. And it is really, it's the game plan, it's the vision for our church that we're seeking to accomplish over the course of the next 10 years. Over the course of the next 10 years is the important thing to keep in mind. I'm not going to talk to you about all 5 hills, because if I told you hill 3, 4, and 5, you wouldn't listen to me as I talk about hill 1 and 2. But I do want you to know that all 5 hills, and there was this fun story about San Diego, but I'm happy to not have to talk about California. But there are 5 hills in San Diego that are pretty interesting. Let's go and jump to that next slide, Chase. The 5 hills that we deal with, they all very much are going to affect how we operate as a student ministry. So hill number 1 is this. We want to pray over every member, over every ministry, in every nation, at every hour of every day. That's a lot of everys. And if you're like me, you're going, I don't even know how that's possible. But it is possible. We're already kind of working through the game plan of what that looks like and how to accomplish that. And it doesn't involve somebody staying up 24/7. You'll be happy to know that. Those of you like me that are night owls, though, we've got a ministry for you. So that's going to be cool. So that's hill number 1. Hill number 2 is this, though, and this is the one that truly affects y'all. We're going to own the responsibility of discipleship for the 976 weeks of your child's life. Now, if you are mathematicians, you're going, wait a second, that's more than 18. 976 actually includes the 9 months of we call it prenatal discipleship, including that 9 months when your child is in the womb. We already want to be discipling your kids. So I started taking a seminary class this summer. It's been fascinating. And I've read about 700 pages of material, and I've written about 30 pages of notes, and then there's another 50 pages of notes that I've received too. I'm trying really, really hard not to just word vomit all over you, but I'm excited about family ministry. And I'm going to explain a little bit what that looks like. One of the best things that I've heard all semester long, it was really, really simple. How many of y'all, when your kids were in the womb, y'all played Mozart? Nobody? A couple of you? There you go. Did Mozart or Bach or classical music, whatever, right? You did that, and you might have even read to your kid. Did anybody do that even before? In fact, one of the coolest things in my entire life was I read to Anson. And I read scripture to him before Anson was even born. And when Anson came out, of course, he came out crying. And I remember I had a video camera in my right hand and a regular camera in my left hand. And I was just like, there was my kid. I was just dumbfounded, right? And my kid's right there. And the doctor had said, TJ, you're on. Oh, yeah, time to film, right? But I'll never forget, Anson's just crying. And I remember at one point, just without thinking, I said, Anson. And immediately he stopped crying. Immediately stopped crying because he knew my voice. So that was really cool. So then I started testing that. So he cried later on. So I did Anson. He stopped crying. Here's the deal. We were talking to him. He was in the womb. Even reading scripture to him. Here's why I bring that up. Prenatal discipleship. That's a real thing. And some of you are going, well, I'm not having a kid yet. Actually, there is one person here that's having a kid. That's really, really exciting. Prenatal discipleship really is praying over your child while they're still in the womb and even reading scripture to them while in the womb. But once they come out, the job's not done. In fact, we're just getting started. We want to own discipleship for our kids from the time they come out until the time they leave your home. And even after they leave your home, biblically speaking, until they're married, they're your problem. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. But it's our role as parents to teach our kids to love Jesus. And that really is the goal. It's not to manage behavior. Let me say it again. It's not to manage behavior. As much as our kids drive us nuts by all the crazy things they do and say and repeat, the goal is for us to not turn them into decent human beings. The goal is for us to teach them to love Jesus. That's discipleship. Y'all with me? Cool. So that's hill 1 and 2. So the question is, how do those things affect the student ministry? So we're going to jump in there. I got a handful of stuff that I want to talk to you about. Again, all 5 peaks, we have a game plan on what that's going to look like. Because let me say this too, this Hills thing, this isn't a big church issue. Okay? This is a LABC issue. So the children's ministry, they're going to be attacking the 5 Hills. The preschool ministry is going to be attacking the senior adults in the church, they're going to be attacking the 5 Hills. We're doing this as a church family. And so all of it, we're going to be working together. I'm so excited. Because again, if I'm climbing a mountain, I'm not going to do that by myself. So let's talk about, for starters, prayer, because that's hill number 1. Let me jump to this next slide. Here are some of the things that I'm doing with your students right now to attack hill number 1. The first one's really, really simple, and they don't know anything about the hills. They just know that I changed how we do Wednesday nights. So for the longest time, I say the longest time, I don't know how long they did this before I got here. But the process of Wednesday night was they walk in, we play a game, we might, feed them some food, we'll do some announcements, we sing some songs, I teach them a sermon, and then they go out and they do small groups, and they may or may not actually talk about what we did sermon-wise. If they were focused, they would talk. If not, they were just, woo, and then they'd go home, right? So starting this semester, when they walked in, I said, okay, we're changing it up some. We still sometimes play games, but not always. Sometimes we do this thing called Cool Story, and I wish I had time to explain that to you. But the bottom line is I'm working on helping your students love each other. And Cool Stories is where we start with that. But then we do announcements, and then we send them out to prayer groups. And every single week they're in a different prayer group, and we mix them up in prayer groups in intentional, but really kind of silly ways. Like for instance, this past week, the prayer groups was just this. We throw up a set of slides up on the TVs, and we say, here are the top 5 movies coming out this summer. Which movie are you most excited about? If you're most excited about Aladdin, you're going to go over to this prayer group. If you're most excited about Avengers, you're going to be at this prayer group. If you're most excited about The Lion King, or whatever the other 2 movies were. And every week they're with a different group of students, just based on their preference. And it might be a silly thing, it might be a serious thing, but every single week they show up with a different group of students, and then we sit them down and say, okay, go around the circle. And it might feel a little kindergartenish, but the kindergartenish thing is actually pretty helpful, because what we've discovered very, very quickly is your kids don't really know how to pray. They don't. I wish I could tell you, like, they're the most awesome prayer warriors in the world. They're not. Even getting them to understand, like, the concept of prayer request, or to listen to somebody else and their prayer request, and then actually pray for each other, this is a struggle for them. And there's a temptation for me to pull my hair out and go, oh my gosh, what in the world? But again, we're on a 10-year road here, and so we really are. We're starting at the base of this mountain, so we're literally teaching your students how to pray. And we're doing that every single week on Wednesday night. And again, mixing them up, getting them to know each other, and praying. And they really, sometimes they're really, really simple. Guess what the number 1 prayer request this week is? The STAR test. And that's okay, because that's a big deal in their world. And that's what we help them understand. Like, we're interested in big prayer requests and little prayer requests. If it's on your heart, we're going to pray about those things. But we're praying, I'm sorry, Chase, can you go back? My bad. We're praying together every Wednesday night. That's a big, big portion. Eventually, the goal is we as a student ministry, when we do refresh, we're going to be in the worship center with refresh with the rest of our church family. They're not ready for that. If I took them in there would be mutiny and a freak out, and it just wouldn't be pretty at all. But eventually, we're going to get there. And the reason why I say that, because I believe with all my heart, one of the most powerful things in the world that we can do for our students, and one of the most powerful things that we can do for those people that are already in there praying every time, is to get a teenager and a 75-year-old lady that are both church members and both members of the family of God to pray together. That's mind-blowing, kingdom-advancing, uncommon stuff right there. So that's the goal. Maybe by this fall we're going to do that. But that's where we're headed. So we're going to get involved in refresh. But then also we've got a prayer meeting. And this is kind of a fun deal. If y'all know Miss Susan Abernathy, she is one of the godliest, most prayingest ladies that I know. She came to me earlier in the semester and said, hey, I want to get involved in the student ministry. I don't want to teach. I'm not a teacher. I just really want to pray for teenagers. I said, sweet. We can take that. And she started talking to me about being a prayer Mimi. Mimi is her grandma name. And her heart's desire is she just wants to pray. She just wants to pray for teenagers. And so we've given teenagers an avenue to connect with their prayer Mimi. And there's probably a dozen of them that every week they're texting with Miss Susan, or they're leaving Miss Susan. We've got some little anonymous prayer cards. Eventually we're going to have a mailbox in here, and it's a prayer Mimi mailbox where a kid can write out a prayer request and put it in there. And every week prayer Mimi comes and she gets those, and she faithfully prays over those cards every single day. And her only rule is this, is she would like an update. She doesn't want to keep praying for grandma who's been sick for 6 months if grandma got better after 2 prayers. Because she will pray until she knows that something has changed. It's a really amazing thing. So that's again, we're just broaching the subject of prayer, but we're helping your students understand the power of prayer. That's where that's building for us. But the other one, though, affects you all as parents, and that's the family discipleship piece. And I'm going to give you a handful of verses here. I assume you know this one. This is the last verse in the Old Testament, and it's pretty significant because this is the last thing that God said for 400 years. He said, he was talking about John the Baptist here. He said, the goal is to turn the hearts of fathers to their children and the hearts of children to their fathers. And literally, he stopped talking and didn't say anything, at least that we have documented, for 400 years. In fact, the other statement of this, he said, if you don't do this thing, if you don't turn the hearts of fathers to the children and children to the fathers, I will come and curse the land. Not the kind of thing that you want to see and hear from the Lord, right? But that's the goal, is to turn the hearts of fathers to the kids and the kids to their fathers. And yes, it's okay to insert the word mother there too. The idea is families together. They need to be connected. And at this state of Israel, they weren't connected, much less, the church family, if you want to call it that. Look at this next verse, though. This one you're probably familiar with. This is called the Shema. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your heart, so impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads and write them on the door frames in your homes and on your gates. That is, by the way, the most quoted scripture in the entire world. Faithful Jews will quote this scripture every single day. We just think John 3:16 is the one, but Jews have got that one beat by far. They go over this every single day. I wish I could go into some of the details on this, but let me just say, hey, Nick, throw me the ball. Throw me the ball. Now you don't have the ball. Throw me the ball. Now you don't have the ball. Eric, you got a ball? Throw me the ball. Chase, you got a ball back there? Nobody's got a ball to throw me? How many of you heard the phrase that things are better caught than taught? With me? And that's generally true. It's a handy little saying. It's easy to remember, things are better caught than taught. When it comes to teaching your children, spiritually speaking, you need to teach them, but they also need to catch them. But here's what I want you to catch that I think is important. I asked you to throw me the ball. Nobody had a ball to throw me. There are things that we, by the power of the Spirit of God, that we need to be teaching our children. And again, the goal is to help them love Jesus. But the problem is, if we don't love Jesus ourselves, that's not something we can teach our children how to do. And so family discipleship has nothing to do with your kids. It actually starts with you first. Our goal is again, and we're going to do this imperfectly, but we're going to do this as a church family together. We're going to help one another love Jesus more so that we can, in turn, help our kids love Jesus too. That way we have the ball so we can throw it to our kids so they can't catch it. Y'all with me? That's the goal. And it starts with, and man, the Shema is so good. It says, it starts with when they wake up in the morning. Talk to them about the Lord. And when you're walking down the road, it's actually when it sits down, the idea there is when you're educating your children, there was no public school system then. It was, as you're educating your kids, that starts with Jesus. And then when you're walking down the road, for us, it would be when you're driving down I-20, watch for opportunities to talk to your kids. And then before they go to bed tonight, talk to your kids about Jesus. How many of y'all, when your kids were little, you prayed with them every night before they went to bed? Okay, good. Be honest with me. How many of you still do that? If you do, awesome. And hear me, please. There is no shame. I have no rocks to throw, okay? But I want you to think about something. If we're honest, certainly in consideration with what Alan just shared with us, who needs prayer more, a toddler or a teenager? No, we need more prayer with the toddlers. The teenager needs more prayer. So why in the world, even though it's not as convenient, it's not as sweet, and yes, they may fight you on it, because goodness gracious, they fight us on everything sometimes. But why in the world would we not end their days with a little prayer? And I promise you, again, some days they're going to fight it. But if you get in the habit of doing that, they'll come to appreciate that again. There will even be days when they'll go, hey, Dad, I'm going to bed. Where's my prayer? And that's a thing that you can joyfully, oh, yeah, you're right, son. I'm sorry. We need to pray together. Of course I want to pray with you. You've heard me say this before your kids, my mentor taught me this, before your kids leave your house every morning, whether you take their kids to school or they jump on the bus or whatever, my mentor never allowed his children to leave the house without him praying for them before they walked out the door. If he was home, and he would frequently call them too when he could. And this is the fulfilling of the scripture. So there's that. Wish we could talk about phylacteries and mazunas because they're really cool. But look at this last verse. This is really good too. Ephesians 6, 1 through 4. You know this one. Children, obey your parents, for this is right in the Lord. This is every parent's favorite verse in the entire Bible, right? You see, it's right there. But hang tight, because it goes on. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and in the instruction of the Lord. This is a give and take thing. Yes, children are supposed to submit to our authority, but we're supposed to be submitting to the authority of Jesus. And that authority of Jesus starts with, again, us loving Christ first and foremost. And then intentionally, you hear that word discipline. Now, okay, I'm going to beat my kid in Jesus' name. No. It's teaching your kids to be disciplined when it comes to their faith. So you're literally teaching your kids how to pray and how to study the scriptures. And yes, it's hard. And yes, it's frustrating. And yes, it takes time. And yes, they're going to fight you. But I promise you, there is nothing more important that we will do. Let me put it this way, because I've only got a couple more minutes left. When we stand before the Savior at the end of our days, it could be any number of things that I think that Jesus will talk to about, but I promise you, he may eventually get to this subject, but he's not going to start here. He's not going to start his conversation with you when it comes to how you dealt with your kids. He's not going to be, hey, did you get your kid a scholarship to Baylor? Did you get your kid a scholarship to A&M? Did you get him on the varsity team? Hey, did you spend enough cash on that classic team? Your kid had some talent. I gave that kid some talent. Did you invest in all those things just to, see that fame and fortune come their way? Did you do that? That conversation will come, but I promise you, the first question he's going to ask you, did you teach your kids to love me? Did you teach your kids to make me first place in their life? And by the way, was I first place in your life? Or did you, and I'm going to say this, it's going to sound really harsh, and it's true, but I say this, again, not throwing rocks, because I'm guilty of this too. Did you turn your kids into an idol and trying to build up their success as opposed to advancing my kingdom? So remember, we're supposed to seek him first, right? That includes with our children. We're supposed to seek him first in relation to our children and his righteousness. And then he says, and then all these other things I'll add to you. Guys, this is family discipleship. Well, here's the point. Here's what I want you to know. The student ministry is going to continue to operate. I'm still going to be your youth pastor. But what you need to know from me is this. My goal is I'm going to continue to pastor your kids, but my goal more and more is going to be find ways to support your role. I've been doing this for 19 years, and I like to think, at least on most days, I'm pretty good at what I do. But the fact of the matter is there's 168 hours in your students' weeks, and I get about an hour and a half with most of them. So an hour and a half out of 168 hours is not a lot. And then you take that chunk of time that the school takes from all of us, and then you take that chunk of time that they're sleeping, or at least we hope they're sleeping. By the way, your kids are not sleeping. I don't know if you know that or not. They're not sleeping. I know this because I'm getting text messages from them in the middle of the night, or I'm seeing their activity on Twitter in the middle of the night. So your kids aren't sleeping, but that's a different conversation. So that time that they're sleeping or not sleeping, and there's that time that they're in school, and then there's the sliver of time that you have them. And it might be 4 or 5 hours a week. And I just want to ask you, in all sincerity, what are you doing as their parents to help your kids know and love Jesus with all their heart, all their mind, all their soul, and all their strength? Because that's the thing that the Lord is going to ask us what we do with our kids. That's true of me too. I'm in this process with you. Okay? Year 20 of student ministry for me will be next year. That just happens to be the year that all of a sudden I've got a teenager in my house. Yeah, I'm not going to feel like I know what I'm going to do. Okay? So I'm going to be calling y'all going, okay, so y'all been parenting teenagers. Help. I have a 13-year-old now. We're in this thing together. So my goal for you is I'm going to resource you every which way I can think of. And I'm going to be available to you every which way I can think of. So I don't know everything, but I've learned any number of things over the years, especially when it comes to communicating the scriptures to teenagers. I've gotten pretty good at that, and I want to help you do that too. Because I promise you, when they stand before the king is not going to ask them, hey, did you listen to your youth pastor? At least not first. I mean, were you listening to your parents? And so if I can help you be a superhero, if you can use that term, man, I want to do that. So that's the goal. Does that make sense? Cool. I'm going to pray, and then if you would, fill out these surveys for me, and if you want to make fun of me, I will explain to you how you can do that. That'll be a lot of fun too, okay? Lord Jesus, thank you for today. And thank you so very much for the opportunity to hang out. God, I love these people. I love their students. And Lord, if we're going to have a bunch of teenagers that truly love you, we're going to have to do that together. And so I thank you for that opportunity. So help us love you, and then help us help our kids love you. Please, God, Jesus, help us. Protect them, Father, like only you can, because there are any number of forces that are against them. But help us. Bless every parent in this room. Father, empower them by your Holy Spirit, that they would take on this responsibility, not just with a deep burden, although it is burdensome, but Father, with joy. Because our greatest gifts from you, besides your Son, are our sons and daughters. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Howdy, parents. I'm sorry that didn't quite finish the meeting earlier, and so we're sitting at my kitchen table now, and I have my Dr. Pepper shake that's powering me through the rest of this. By the way, if you've not tried it, it's awesome. Go get you a Dr. Pepper shake. But just a few more things that I wanted to touch base on, and we can finish from my kitchen table. And by the way, the kitchen table is easily one of the best places in the world for family ministry, so take advantage of that. But we'll talk about that some other day. So we recently asked your students the question. It was in connection groups. We said, how often do you think about God and his plans for your life? And I wish I could tell you that we had some awesome responses, but by and large, it was really, really sad. The overwhelming response was, I don't think about God and his plans for my life very often. The second most common response was this, though, and it might have even been sadder, and that was, I don't know that God has a plan for my life. I only bring that up to say that this is where our students are at. This is where your kids are at. Again, we're not shaming anybody. We're here to encourage you. But in order for us to win this thing called discipleship with our students, we have to know where they're at, and this is where they're at. They don't think about the Lord all that particularly often, and especially not God's plans for their lives. So with that in mind, we want to keep pursuing that option. I want you to ask yourself a hard question, though, if you're trying to evaluate, hey, where is my kid really at? A diagnostic question that might be helpful is this. Ask yourself the question, if my kid left for college today, or if my kid left for the Army today, or if my kid went to be a firefighter today, or whatever, they're done with high school and they're leaving my home, do you believe that they would be in church next Sunday if they left today? And then the follow-up question to that was, do you believe they would still be in church 3 months from now? And again, there's no way to know that for sure, but just knowing where your kid is at right now spiritually and everything you know about them, and you are the specialist on your student, there is very little that I could probably tell you about your kids that you don't know already. Although I can tell you firsthand that sometimes it's hard to be honest about our own kids. We try to look at them through rose-colored glasses, and sometimes that's helpful. But when it comes to the spiritual thing, we want to be brutally honest with ourselves so that we can better minister to them. So again, ask yourself that question. If my kid left home today to go to college, do I think that they would be in church next Sunday? And do I think they would be in church 3 months from now? I got this quote from Don Whitney. He's a professor at Southern Seminary. I thought it was pretty helpful. It says, having your children in a good Bible-teaching local church is one crucial aspect to Christian parenting. But it's not enough for conveying your faith to your children. Moreover, it is unlikely the exposure to church once or twice a week will impress your children enough with the greatness and glory of God that they will want to pursue him once they leave home. So again, just reemphasizing this point that we had while we were in the LC together. Guys, if your students' only spiritual conversation during the week is the 1.5 to 2.5 hours that they are at LABC, compare that against the 168 hours that is their total week. That's really not a lot. That's not enough for anybody. If you want to use the food analogy, we would say if you only ate 1 time a week, you would not be a healthy person at all. Fasting is great, but if you fasted if you fasted just 1 meal a week all the time, you wouldn't be healthy in the least bit. This is sometimes how we treat our souls. We feed ourselves once, maybe twice a week, and call it a week, and it just doesn't work. It especially doesn't work with students who are still developing in their faith period. So with that thought in mind, let me give you what I hope will be 4 really practical tips that you can use
to begin or continue wherever you're at in the family discipleship process. Let me give you 4 things that I think will be helpful, stuff that I've discovered, I'm doing, or have just been involved in, and I think is good stuff. Number 1, when it comes to your teenagers, at least, whenever you pick them up from church on Sunday morning, Wednesday night, discipleship group, whatever, don't ask them the question, what did you learn? Instead, ask them the question, were you encouraged or challenged to love and obey Jesus today? And here's the difference, and we talked about this a little bit today. The goal when we gather together as a body of believers isn't to learn something new. The goal is to be challenged and encouraged to love and follow Jesus more readily. There's any number of times where any of us show up at church and we don't learn any new information, but that doesn't mean that our time was wasted. Because it's not about gathering new information. It's about being changed by the Spirit of God and the opening of His Word. And so ask your kids that question. Say, hey, were you challenged to love and follow Jesus? And when they say yes, and I promise we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they can say yes, then follow up with the question, just quite simply, just say, how so? In other words, what did you learn? What did you look at? You're doing several things by following up in this manner. Number 1, you're showing your kids that you are genuinely interested in their spiritual development. But number 2, it's giving you some insight into what we're going on, what we're doing, and I'm going to do a better job about helping you know what's going on. But as your students are answering these questions, it's giving you understanding of where they're at theologically and what they're understanding, what they're not understanding, and then you can have further conversations with them about the scriptures. You can share with them the stuff that you know from the passages that we're following up. Again, my goal is to set you up so that you can be the hero and the champion of this deal, because you already are. I just want to affirm that in you, though. So again, don't ask what'd you learn. Ask them, were you challenged to love and follow Jesus? Number 2, pray with your kids daily. And you've heard me say this before, but I will not stop emphasizing this. This isn't just basic Christianity. This is the most important thing that you can do with your children. Pray with them. Don't notice I didn't say for them. Pray with your kids. Whether it's, again, before they go to school or before they leave the house or before they go to bed or whatever. Have a daily, regular prayer with them. And again, I'm at the dinner table, but the prayer before your meal doesn't count. Pray with them and then ask them a question. And I'm having fun with my kids on this, and they don't always have an answer, and that's okay. But ask them, hey, what's something I can pray for you about? Eventually, they will start talking about that, and that's going to lead to some really cool conversations with them. But pray with your kids daily. I'm going to offer a new challenge, and this might feel a little bit outside the box, but the more I think about it, the more I pray about it, I think it's going to be helpful. I want to challenge you to have your kids sit with you on Sunday morning instead of in the student section. Now, I think the student section is cool. It looks really neat to have them all up front, and it just, it looks awesome. But I really believe with all my heart that if our students were sitting with their families on Sunday morning, lots of stuff is happening there. As a family, you're just experiencing the work of the Lord together collectively, and that's a beautiful thing. But also, your students are taking cues from you on what worship looks like. Now that means, we might have to take worship a little more seriously. We might have to pay attention. We might have to get off our cell phones. And it really, honestly, I'm not saying this from a discipline standpoint, because yes, there are plenty of times when Becca and I are going, stop talking, pay attention, right? But that's likely not going to happen if they're sitting with you. But truly, more than anything, they're learning how to worship with their family. And they're learning from the specialist in their lives, mom and dad, on how to worship the King. And so I really believe that this would be a healthy and holy thing. Now, this isn't from on high, hey, there's not a student section anymore. This is just a challenge from me to you. Next Sunday morning, hey, tell your kids, y'all come sit with me this week. I just think we'd start to see some fruit from that. Last thing is have just once a week, a weekly family worship time. Now, when I say family worship, I don't mean, Dad, you have to get out your guitar and lead everybody in song. There may not be any singing, and that's okay. It may be as simple as you just opening up the scripture and just reading a chapter together as a family. And you can talk about it. You can ask questions. If you want to prepare a devotion, that's awesome. If you don't know how to do any of that stuff, Guys, I'm sitting on like 150 family devotions that are just ready to go that I would joyfully send to you to help you get started. There's a handful of resources that I've got that are just really, really helpful, and I want to start arming you with those things. But just do it just once a week. Again, use the eating principle. If you only ate once a week, or if you only ate twice a week, you would not be a healthy person. The most healthy thing that we can do, besides being in the Word for ourselves, is as parents, as fathers and mothers, is to open up the Scriptures with our kids. And so do that, again, just once a week. That's a very, very doable thing. Pick a time that's convenient. It doesn't have to be a full-blown 1 hour thing. In fact, I would encourage you 10 or 15 minutes tops. Be engaging, be encouraging. And again, I've got some resources I want to send your way if you're interested in that. I've got a handful of things I want to start sending you on a regular basis. But I really think this will be helpful to you. And so engage your kids in that way. Last thing I want to offer you, and it is I call it the TJV. This is the TJ version of Matthew chapter 16, verse 26. And it goes back to that thought that we mentioned back in the loft. But it just says this: what will it profit a church kid if they gain the whole world through academic and extracurricular success if they still lose their soul? Guys, truly, this isn't me speaking. This is from on high, from Jesus. There is no greater thing, no greater responsibility, no more important job, no more specific task that we have than to lead our kids to the cross and to help them love Jesus. And we already do a good job of helping them love all sorts of stuff. There's, my kids, even when we lived in Arizona, when they were learning to talk, they knew they were Texans because I taught them to love Texas. I've taught my kids to love Texas A&M University. All of you have taught your kids to love something, whether it's intentional or unintentional. Let's intentionally work to love Jesus ourselves and teach our kids to love Jesus themselves. And here's the best part about it, guys. The Holy Spirit will help us. He's promised so. This is the task He's given us. He's going to help us do it. So let's work together to help our kids love the King. Guys, I love y'all. Have a great week, and we'll see you later.